Hey guys, this is Colby. Today I'm going to show you how to model an armored shoe for your character inside of Blender using the annotation tool. So let's get started. So the first step is to switch to side view. So press 3 on your numpad. So that way you can see the foot from the side view better. And then switch to the annotation tool. So turn this on right here. And now we can start drawing the design for this foot. So I'm going to start creating the front piece for the toes to be kind of rounded. And make sure that you keep in mind where the toe is going to bend on the foot because when we rig this character later on, the armature will essentially go into the ankle right here, then once right here, and then into the toe. So that way you have toe articulation and they can bend. So right here is about the point where the toes will bend, like this little section here. And then we can start modeling pieces kind of like this. And if you make a mistake, just press Control Z to undo it. So here I'm just, undoing some of the strokes that I just made. But you get the idea. I'm just going to be creating little armor pieces that kind of go towards the back of the foot and trying to keep them as simple as I can because, it's just planning. So I'm going to keep drawing the design. So here I'm just going to add some pieces. They don't have to make a whole lot of sense, just as long as they look pretty good and we're happy with them. So here I'm just going to just kind of experiment and undo any mistakes. But I'll show you what the rest of my annotation looks like when I'm done with it and I'm happy with it. So I'll see you here in a second. So here's my annotation. I'm pretty happy with the overall shape and I'm ready to start modeling now. But something I might point out is that really I'm just trying to focus on functionality when it comes to the rigging part, which we'll cover later on. But for now, these are just the pieces. I'm trying to make sure that the toe doesn't clip through this piece whenever it bends upward. So I have to probably edit the shape a bit. So I'm not going to stick 100% to my annotation. But anyway, let's get started with the modeling. So I'm going to start by creating a plane, like always. Shift A. I'm going to set my cursor to the foot first. So right now it's like up here in the middle of the body, but we're going to move it down toward the foot. So that way we don't have to move the plane. So hold down Shift and then press right click on the foot. And that'll move the cursor down to the foot area. And now let's press Shift A, create a plane. And just scale it down with S, drag your mouse, and click. And then just kind of move it up into position. So press G and then like move it to wherever you want, and then left click to make sure its position is final. And then if you want to move it again, press G and then click again. That's pretty much all it is. So that's RX, so R and then X, and then rotate it. And then we're going to start with this piece up here. But I'm going to just make sure that it lines up good. And we're going to go back to like front view and move it like right here. We have to think a little more three-dimensionally. We're not just going to be doing it just from the annotation. We have to kind of imagine what it's going to be like all over the foot. But anyway, let's get started with this piece. So before we start editing the shape too much, let's go into edit mode. Once we have this piece selected, so press tab, and then I might add an edge loop down the middle, so Control R, and then click left click twice, and then I'll finalize it. And let's delete one of the faces on the half. So select one of the two faces, it doesn't matter which. But I'm just going to delete this one because it's, my annotation's on the left side of the foot. So I'm delete this piece, undo that, press X and delete it, and go back to object mode. And let's add a modifier. So click on the wrench tool here, add modifier, and then mirror it, and then turn on clipping here. And then now we can basically, whatever we do on this side will be mirrored to the other side. And we can start moving sideways on the annotation and start modeling around, and that'll also mirror to the other side without us having to worry about it. Let's get started with that. To go into edit mode, if you're in object mode, go into edit mode, press tab, or you can press object or edit mode up here. And then we can start extruding around the ankle. So select this edge here, so press 2 on your keyboard, and then I'll go into edge mode. vertice, edge, and then face mode. Select this edge here, and then start moving it back a bit, like this. Select G and then Y, and then left click, press E to extrude. It's clipping through the foot, so we have to move it out of the way. So press G and then X, and then kind of make it sure that it's not clipping through the base mesh. And here I'm just gonna scale it up a bit so it matches the annotation better. And let's go back into side view. So right click, press 3 on your numpad, and then we can start moving this one down here. And press G and then X. So we're gonna add an edge loop on this side right here. So that way we can move it out of the base mesh. So press Ctrl R and then left click, and then press G, X, and then move it so that way it's not clipping through. So let's just make sure it looks good. And for now, we don't have to worry too much about the thickness. We can add that with a solidify modifier later on. But for now, we're just going to focus on the shape and just using planes to wrap around. So that we're basically done with this piece. Not necessarily all the modifiers, just for now, that's like this piece. I'm going to add one more modifier, so solidify, and then thickness, and then turn that up a bit. Make it more of like an armor piece. And almost also add one more modifier, subdivision surface. And so it's clipping through a bit. So let's scale it up. So it's a little rounded around the top and bottom here. So we need to add some extra edge loops. So Control R up here, and then Control R down here. And then do one over here. So Control R and then left click, and then left click again to slide it down. And that'll basically be it for that piece. So I'm gonna go back into object mode, right click on it, and press shade smooth. And so now that's pretty much how it's gonna look at the end. But we're going to be doing pretty much the same thing for the rest of the pieces. So I hope you get the idea. But anyway, let's start on the next piece, which is going to be this one right here. So let's get started. So for the next piece, we're going to duplicate one of these faces, then move it over. But here, I'm just going to select this face here, or this one. It doesn't really matter which, as long as it just kind of, it's more convenient. But Shift D to duplicate, so Shift D, and then I'm going to move it out of the way, so press G and then Y. And I'll move it on the Y-axis backward a bit. And I'm going to go back into object mode. And you can see that it's actually still just all one piece, so we need to separate it. So press G on it, move it around, press P to separate by selection. Now it's separate. And let's just move all the faces into position. But now we're going to get started on this piece. So once you're in edit mode, go into edge mode with 2 on your keyboard. Select this edge here, and then move it back. So press G and then Y. And then just make sure it matches the annotation. So it's a little rounded because of the subdivision surface modifier. So I'm going to turn that off for a second. So in order to temporarily do that, you can just delete the modifier, or you can turn the viewport rendering down to 0, and that'll undo the subdivision. Or we can turn it back on later. But anyway, let's start. Make sure it wraps around the back of the ankle. And looks good. So here, I'm just going to extrude. So press E, and we can move it, and then merge it with the other half of the face that we created. So now it's actually wrapped around, but I'm going to make it a little more rounded. So here, I'm just going to add an edge loop, and then we can select this face here, and then move it back, and then kind of move it a little bit inward, so that way it's a little more rounded. And so that's pretty much it for this piece. I'm going to turn back on the subdivision surface modifier. And so you can see that it's kind of rounded, but we need to sharpen everything up. So go into edit mode and then Control R on each side, so that way it sharpens everything. So Control R, add an edge up here, left click like twice, and then just slide it into position. And so here we need to make sure that it's not too like, I guess, inward, I guess. So just Control R and make sure it lines up with this piece. And that looks pretty good. So let's start on the next piece. But by now you should start seeing the pattern. I'm just showing how to do pretty much each piece individually by using the last piece's modifiers in a single face by duplicating it. But anyway, let's start on this piece. This is going to be the hardest one, but after this, you should get the idea and be able to do the rest. It's pretty easy. So for this piece right here, we're going to select the face from this, duplicate it, and then basically create a set of faces that go down this way, and then create a set of faces that go around, and that'll basically be it for the rest of the piece. So here, Shift D to duplicate, scale it, press S, and press G, and then left click a couple times to finish everything. Just press G, and just move it into position. And let's start wrapping around the side here. So press E to extrude. E to extrude again. Make sure it follows the annotation. Doesn't have to be perfect. So it's clipping through the base mesh quite a bit, so we need to move it outward a bit. It's really thin right now, but that's fine. It's not perfectly symmetrical across the foot, or it's because the foot is asymmetric, but the actual piece is symmetric, so it's kind of looking weird over here. But we can fix that later. So select these two edges here, so this one and this one. Let's straight in edge mode, and then press E to extrude back. Press E and then Y, and move it all the way back here. And then press R and X, and just kind of rotate it, and then scale it a bit. Just follow the annotation. So it's clipping through a bit, but we can worry about that later. Now we're just going to merge, so press E, then X, and then clip, and then make sure it's merged together. So that looks really good. And so now we're going to fix this little problem here. So press Control R to add an edge loop. Now we can select this part and then move it out. So that looks really good. Just kind of editing the shape a bit. It's not too hard. Just edit the shape, make sure you're happy with it. Make sure it looks very rounded and nice, and perfectly wrapped around the ankle. But that looks really good. So let's get started on the next piece. Actually, one more thing before we get started on the next piece. Let's sharpen everything up. So press Control R, and then press left click twice, and just left click once, and then slide it into position, and then left click again. And I'm gonna do the same on the bottom. Control R down here. So now we're going to kind of follow this little line right here. So Control R and add some corners. Just edit the shape and follow the overall shape of the previous pieces. Like that. This is kind of optional, but I'm just trying to make sure it looks kind of nice and follows the overall aesthetic and style. So that's really good. So now let's get started on the next piece. So for the next section, right here, we're going to kind of do the same thing we did right here. So press uh, edit mode, go to edit mode, press tab, and then select this face, and then shift D to duplicates. And let's select one of the edges here, and then kind of move it towards the annotation. But I'm just going to move it towards the top of the foot and down. So I'm just going to press G and then Y, and then just G and then Z, and then kind of move it, follow this angle here. Make sure it covers most of the foot because this is going to wrap all the way around. So here, now I'm going to wrap around. So press E and X once you have this edge selected, and move it down and follow the annotation. So I'm just going to scale it on the Z-axis to flatten this little set here, this edge, and make it flat on the bottom. And so here I'm going to turn off the subdivision surface modifier so I can see what it looks like without all the roundness. So it's clipping through a bit. We can fix that. So press Ctrl R, move it outward a bit. So it's still clipping through a bit, but we can still fix that. Just kind of do like that. Just move it into position and move it out of the way. And same here. So just kind of make sure you're paying attention to both sides. So I'm sharpen this little section here, and here, and once over here. And that looks really good. So we can start on the next piece, which is the toe section. So once we do the toes, we'll be nearly done with the whole set of foot, but we're going to do a little more after that, just a little bit more. But anyway, let's go to edit mode on this piece. Select one of the faces here, Shift D to duplicate. And like always, just move it into position and rotate it. And this part's going to be a little more rounded, so we need to kind of extrude sort of like in a different way. So I'm going to extrude kind of like this. And so since it's rounded, we're going to select this set of edges here. So Shift Alt, and then once you're in edge mode, Shift Alt, and then select this set of edges, scale it down a bit, and move it back. Not too much though. And then press E to extrude sideways, and scale that set again. And just move it down. So here we can select some of these edges here, and just kind of move them towards the top, the bottom. So here, I'm just going to move this down, and then I'm going to flatten it so it says SZ and then 0. And that'll do that. Just move it back. So it's not following the overall shape, so we need to fix that. Just press G in this little section here, and just kind of follow the overall shape of the other pieces. This part's, it's a little bit non-straightforward, but sometimes modeling can be unpredictable. You just kind of have to figure out how you're going to do it. But anyway, I think we're pretty much done with this toe piece. And we're nearly there. Just trying to finalize everything. Control R, and then just sharpen this whole section here. And now we're done. So now we need to add some bottoms to each piece on the shoe. So let's go into edit mode, and let's select these edges here. So hold down Shift once you're in edge mode, and then click these edges here. Press E to extrude, and hold down Shift and select these two edges, and then fill. So press F to fill, and do the same over here. So hold down Shift and then select this set of edges here. For this piece, and then press E to extrude sideways. Press G and then X and move it towards the center. And to make sure it's not clipping, just press G and then Y, and then move it downward a bit like this. And then do the same over here. So select all these edges here. Don't select all of them, but just select the ones that are basically facing the y-axis or parallel to the y-axis. Let's press E to extrude and move them inward. And then here, this set, now we can fill. Let's press F to fill. And we're basically done. We just need to make sure that it's not clipping through the base mesh like this. So I'm going to edit the shape. I'm going to turn on proportional editing and move everything down bits. And we're basically done. But one last thing is to basically apply all of our modifiers and then kind of make it a little bit less symmetrical and match the shape of the foot a little bit better. So once you're happy with your overall shape, join everything together. So hold down Shift. Once you're in object mode, hold down Shift and select all these pieces and then press Control J to join them all together and apply all of your modifiers all at once. So that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, just leave a comment down below and I'll try to answer them. And if you could please like and subscribe, it'd really help out my channel a bunch right now because the gains are like really huge starting off. But also, if you could consider donating to my Patreon, it'd really make a huge difference to me. It'd help me make more content. Even just a small amount is really huge for me. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see y'all guys next time.